Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and the Washington Commanders have signed 5-time Pro Bowler guard Trai Turner. Is this too much Carolina for the team? We're going to talk about it, but our only 3 free agency signings outside of who was already on our team, who we brought back, who we re-signed, have literally been all Panthers players. And then lastly, we have to talk about how the Washington Commanders and Landon have mutual interest to bring him back. And I'm really excited about that, because if it's a really cheap deal, no, we are in business, because there's a big hole to fill with Landon not here. He played very well for us the second half of the season once he started to play a little bit more linebackery, once he was asked to cover deep down the field way less. And so I don't think people realize that if we lost Landon Collins, if we end up not having him going into this next season, how much of a hole that's going to be. I mean, granted, we've brought in guys to potentially fill that spot last year with Ereck Flowers. Maybe you can argue Jamin Davis if he goes back to the weight that he had in college and gains some of his speed and explosion back instead of trying to force himself in the Mike linebacker. Of course, the recent draft pick with Percy Butler. And I mean, there's a handful of guys that may try to compete for that. A couple of undrafted free agents. But Landon Collins, you know for a fact, you bring him back, he fills that role very well. Maybe not to the extent of a Kyle Hamilton that I wanted in the draft, but we know exactly how this defense operates with Landon Collins out there. And when he's not, it's a difference. You can tell there's Landon Collins not out there for sure. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, be on the lookout for all of the content that's coming out. I'm coming out with at least a video, maybe even 2 a day for the next few days, because there's so much to talk about. I want to do a live stream, basically doing a draft review with y'all, where I'm basically getting y'all's opinion more than anything else. I'll open up the phone lines for y'all to call in and give y'all opinions for the most part, and I'll also chime in here and there. But I'm gonna save most of my thoughts for my official draft breakdown and review, and I'm gonna go pick by pick, round for round. I'm also gonna include my undrafted free agents in the grade, because some of these guys have some star potential, and you know you have to kind of include that in your analysis and grade. So be on the lookout for all of that content, man. So much film sessions, but go become a channel member if you haven't, because I'm gonna do a film session on every player we drafted, and the majority, if not all, undrafted free agents that we brought in. Even if I gotta react to a highlight tape and do it in a film session like setting where I'm pausing, rewinding, showing things in slow motion to break it down, all of that, even if it's for a highlight tape, I'm gonna get y'all something for everybody. So stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get it. All right, so let's start with Trai Turner first. Washington is signing former Steelers, well, really you need to emphasize former Carolina Panthers free agent guard Trai Turner to a 1-year, $3 million deal. First of all, great value, and we're going to dive into exactly why. And Adam Schefter mentions the Steelers because that's the team he was most recently on. And remember, Rivera and Marty Hurney, who are currently in this Washington organization and front office, drafted Trai Turner to the Carolina Panthers back in 2014 as a 3rd-round pick. And he's basically been a Pro Bowler the majority of those seasons ever since. Now, technically, people consider last year an off year, and I can kind of admit it was a slightly off year for him, and that's why we were even able to get him for a 1-year, $3 million prove-it deal. I mean, that's arguably, if we're talking about value-wise, one of the best free agency signings, period, in all of free agency. Of course, you know, you want the star power like Bobby Wagner's and Tyrann Mathieu and guys like that, but if we're talking value, how much potential a guy has and how much we're paying him, Trai Turner is a very good signing in my opinion. I actually like this signing probably even a little bit more than the Andrew Norwell one. But again, going back to his 2021 season, it honestly wasn't even that bad. I mean, Pro Football Focus liked it, and looking at the tape, I didn't hate it as much as a lot of other people did, because they gave him a 69.4 overall grade. They felt like his pass blocking was 72.7 and his run blocking was 67.6. And according to Pro Football Focus, that wasn't as good as the guards we had here last year, like Wes Schweitzer, Ereck Flowers, and Brandon Sheriff, but it was still really good. Like a top half of the league guard, according to Pro Football Focus. Again, I'm a little bit lower on this 2021 season than maybe Pro Football Focus is, but I'm definitely higher on it than other people feel. And then his 2020 season was definitely his worst season by far. But if you go 2019 and back, he was one of the best offensive linemen in the league, and that's why he went to the Pro Bowl 5 times since being drafted here back in 2014. And I think he still has a lot of that in him. I just think system matters, like who you play next to, who's your offensive lines coach, and even your offensive coordinator calling certain plays, like are you a zone run scheme, are you a power run scheme, and it's just so many little things to where like the chemistry of the guy next to you, like for Trai Turner's case at right guard, how fast is he going to become familiar and be able to learn how to communicate and understand exactly what Samuel Cosme wants and what he's doing from the right of him and Chase Roulier to the left of him. And I think it's going to be a seamless transition with so many Carolina guys here anyway, in Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, all of these guys. I just think it makes so much sense. And if there's any place they can get the most out of Andrew Norwell and Trai Turner to get them back to both of their Pro Bowl selves, it's the Washington Commanders. If out of any organization in the NFL I trust the most, and plus John Matsko has shown us that he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. I mean, we've been getting the most out of pretty much everybody we've put out there. You got to remember, in the 2020 season, our offensive line was surprisingly good, better than what we expected. In the 2021 season, we went in like maybe offensive line is one of our worst position groups in training camp. Next thing you know, throughout the season before injuries hit, we really had a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. And then when severe injuries started to hit us and we got to like 5th string centers, 3rd string guards, backup tackles, and everything, our offensive line was still like decent. It wasn't terrible. So when in doubt, man, I trust all of these guys in John Matsko's hands, and when in doubt, he's gonna get the most out of them. So I like this signing a lot. I'm actually very excited about it. Now, if we would have signed him to like a 1-year, $10 million deal, and then he's like the holdup and why we can't pay Terry McLaurin long term, then I'm iffy on it. But this, I mean, getting a potential starting guard, in my opinion, I think at the very least you're getting really good depth, but I think honestly he's going to end up starting over Wes Schweitzer. And it's kind of the thing to where Wes Schweitzer, like him as a starting right guard, and I think he is a good starting right guard, but he's just so valuable as a backup guy because he can play left guard, he can play center, he can play right guard, he can literally play all three pretty well, that his value is just more important as a backup than a starter, which kind of hurts him to an extent. I kind of feel sorry for him in that way, but ideally Trai Turner is your starting right guard, Andrew Norwell is your starting left guard, and Wes Schweitzer is your backup. Saahdiq Charles is depth added to that, and you get whatever you get from Saahdiq Charles if he ever has to play. Ideally hope he doesn't end up having to play with all of those injuries that will happen, because Wes Schweitzer is the backup probably, and then Saahdiq Charles is the backup to him. But we'll see. I think that's really solid depth at the very least. We may not have stars on the offensive line, but from left to right, the 5 guys up front, everybody's above average to really good, and that's how you have a top 5 offensive line, because there's a lot of offensive lines out there with all pros on it, with pro bowlers, but if you only have 1 or 2 and then the rest of the offensive line has holes in it, at the end of the day, with no chemistry, with no consistency along the line, your offensive line ends up being worse than the offensive lines like us, where we're just solid all across the board and have good depth. So I like this. I'm really excited about this. I'm probably higher on this than most people, but I don't know. I honestly think he will go back closer to his Carolina form. I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler. I'm not saying he's going to be 100% what he was in Carolina, but I think we're going to get closer to what he was in Carolina than what he was for the Steelers and whatever he was that 2019 season, boy. I think that's definitely his worst season. Again, I think this is incredible value because, again, since it's a 1-year prove-it deal, he's going to go out there and play his heart out. He's going to do everything he can to try to get that next contract. So, I mean, if anything, he's going to be extremely motivated out there. And again, how comfortable he's going to be coming back to a system that he's familiar with players he's familiar with, Andrew Norwell specifically on the other side. I mean, it just makes too much sense in my opinion. If we can just get him and Andrew Norwell back to what they were in 2017 and 2018, we are cooking with grease, bro. I'm telling you. Top 5 offensive line once again. Again, not guaranteeing it, but I'm very optimistic about it. And this just goes to show, like I've been telling y'all in several videos, several live streams over the past couple of weeks, the Washington Commanders feel like the free agency period really starts after the draft. They want to attack the draft, see what else they need, and then sign free agents. And so, I mean, to me, that's not how I would go about it. I would be one of those guys that's not necessarily signing the biggest names day one, but I would definitely be trying to get some of those guys. Like I would have signed Bobby Wagner to what the Rams are paying them, but the Washington Commanders prefer to wait till after the draft to get guys for way cheaper than they should be going for. And it's worked very well for us so far. Charles Leno, Logan Thomas, even though he hasn't been able to stay healthy, J.D. McKissick. Like when we do these bargain bin signings, guys come here and play the best years of their career. J.D. McKissick McKissic has been way better for us than he ever was on any previous team. Same thing with Logan Thomas. Charles Leno's basically just been solid. I think he played better for us last year than he played recently for the Bears. Wes Schweitzer was a backup on the Falcons' terrible offensive line. Now, I would be fine with him starting, even though, again, I prefer him as a backup, but that's a good thing. It's not because he's not a quality starter. It's just because he's so valuable as a backup because he can play multiple positions. And so we're just bringing guys off the bargain bin, off the great value rack, and getting more out of them than previous teams could, and we're paying them very cheap for it. So I can't be mad at this. I mean, just like the draft, where I would have been completely Jameson Williams or Kyle Hamilton, George Pickens in the second, Malik Willis in the third. Obviously, I'm going straight ceiling. They chose to go the opposite way with floor, safe, and you're filling in needs, and you know what you're going to get week one without having to worry about, somebody getting you fired potentially and stuff like that. I understand. Even though I don't agree with it, I understand. Same thing with this bargain bin shopping. As long as they're consistent, I'm good with it. Don't be all over the place. And right now, they're appearing consistent. Every move they've made this offseason looks like we're doing everything we can to make sure we have no holes anywhere. We're going to have as much depth in as many positions as possible, and we're trying to build a win now team that can get you 10 games and at least a 5 through 7 seed in the NFC. I don't think we're necessarily building a Super Bowl winner right now, because then you take the risk if you're trying to get that. You get the Malik Willises, you get the Jameson Williams or the Kyle Hamiltons, the George Pickens, the guys with the crazy high ceilings, but the floors that you may not necessarily be sure about, or they may have an injury history like Jameson Williams. If you're trying to win a Super Bowl as soon as possible, then that's the road you go. Then that's the path you take. But I feel like they're more so taking it slower. We try to build on what we did last year, winning 7 games, try to win like 10 games this year. That's probably the goal, and that's probably like a very realistic goal, again, with the way that they're building the roster. And then maybe next year you win 11 games and win a playoff game, and then maybe 3 to 5 years from now you're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Maybe if Sam Howell is your franchise quarterback, or for some crazy reason Carson Wentz actually goes out there and becomes his 2017 self again and can stay healthy. Who knows, man? But I just see the vision. Again, I don't necessarily agree with the vision per se, but I'm just giving y'all the viewpoint of Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew, so all of this stuff can make sense. And again, I haven't necessarily agreed with a lot of the stuff they've done this offseason, including the draft, but I love this Trai Turner signing, and it aligns with everything they've been doing. They've been very consistent as far as this offseason goes with how they're addressing needs. And again, don't love starting free agency after the draft, but we have been able to get a lot of really good players for way cheaper than they should have signed for because of that. And then, of course, people are going to talk about the Carolina connection. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, granted, again, all 3 of the signings that we've made this free agency period that have come from other teams are all ex-Panthers. Even if they weren't most recently on the Panthers, Ron Rivera and Marty Hurney have had experience having those guys on the Panthers at some point in time very recently. And 2 of them are guards, so they're not playing about the offensive line. Remember, the other one was F.A. Abada, the defensive end. And to me, if they make the team better, if they go out there and ball out, I don't care if they're ex-Panthers. I know it's like a running joke, and it does seem kind of lazy when you look at it from one angle, but at the other angle, you know what you're getting day one. You're not bringing in Trai Turner from another team, another system, and you don't exactly know how he's going to fit as a puzzle piece. You know exactly what you're getting from Trai Turner floor-wise, and there's definitely a really big ceiling and a 5-time Pro Bowler very recently. I mean, remember, he's still only, 28 years old? It's not like he's a 5-time Pro Bowler, he's 35, and he's out of his prime, and we're not sure if he's going to be able to get back to his Pro Bowl form, mostly because of his athleticism and durability. No, he's 28 years old. I think it was just a matter of bad fit these past couple of years for him. I think he comes here and he balls out. So again, I don't mind us signing a bunch of ex-Panthers. I would like to go and get guys from other teams, but if it works, it works. I'm going to just give them the benefit of the doubt until they don't deserve it anymore. And then lastly, Landon Collins. It's been reported that there's a little bit of noise about a Landon Collins return with mutual interest from Collins' side and the Commanders via Chad Ryan. I think we'll still end up, actually going through with the June 1st cut, which will save us quite a bit of cap space after it's officially done. Again, June 1st. and then we'll just sign him back for really cheap, probably a 1-year prove-it deal. And then after he goes out there and balls out, which we hope he does, because that's why you sign guys. You don't want them to go out there and be bad so you can sign them to a cheap contract later. You want them to go out there and ball out, and then of course we won't make the same mistake, sign them to one of the highest paid safety deals again. But ideally he goes out there and balls out on a cheap 1-year deal, and then we sign him back long term for something reasonable. I can see that happening, and I actually really like the idea of it. And again, Landon Collins-wise, like I spoke about briefly in the intro, with him gone, there's a hole on the defense. Now, we've tried to address it with certain undrafted free agents, certain draft picks, but it's not like we prioritized it. We didn't sign a guy within the first 3 rounds that may take Landon Collins' place. And again, some of them are late round draft picks and undrafted free agents. You have Derek Forrest, who was a late round draft pick last year that barely even played, maybe Khaleke Hudson. So there's some candidates there, but nobody's the certified floor that you get with Landon Collins if you bring him back. You know for a fact that when Landon Collins comes back, if we get him, he's going to play that role very well. Everybody else is speculative, and you may have to wait a year or 2 or more. I mean, remember, it even took Landon Collins a minute to adjust to the role. It took him half a season. He's a seasoned veteran. Imagine some of these late round draft picks and undrafted free agents that we hope become that, but will they even become that within this year? Will they even get the chance to? So I would much more prefer to just go ahead and bring back Landon Collins on a 1-year cheap deal. I actually really like that. If you want to go ahead and sign him to like a 3-year cheap deal, whatever, as long as the deal is cheap, it's reasonable, and it doesn't get in the way of us re-signing Terry McLaurin big time money. But yeah, man, I'm definitely down. I mean, you got to remember, he's a locker room leader. He's helped develop some of the other guys. I mean, I feel like he wasn't the sole reason that Cameron Curl is as good as he is, but I'm pretty sure he was pretty paramount in a big effect on why Cameron Curl was able to become such an impact player so soon. He's a veteran. He's a locker room leader, and I just think we'd be making a big mistake to allow him to go to another team. Jack Del Rio's defense only started to look even decent, but at times really good, when Landon Collins started to really embrace that hybrid safety linebacker Buffalo nickel role. And so bring them back, please. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please like the video if you liked it. If you learned anything, definitely get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about the Trai Turner signing and the potential Landon Collins signing. Are you bothered by the fact that we keep signing Carolina guys? All of that. And of course, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. If you're not a sponsor, go become one, because these film sessions are about to start flying out there. I want to do like a couple of film sessions where I actually take the time to edit and organize them like I used to do. But those raw and edited film sessions that are for channel members only, I literally just pull up the tape, we analyze it live, I do very minimal editing, and they're done within like 2 hours. The other ones take like 8 hours plus, like 8 hours very minimum. So I'll try to do a couple of those, but the channel members are going to get film sessions on everybody we drafted in the most, if not all, undrafted free agents that we brought in. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.